Okay, so for materials, 2 rectangles, 14 by 70, and 2 ribbons, both 60 inches long. If you want to put an applique on the front, you're going to do that now before you proceed with any of these other steps. Okay, so the first step, you're going to take your ruler, and then on both pieces, you're going to measure down 2 inches from the top and 1 inch below that, so 3 inches as well. And you're gonna mark both of them like that. This would be on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so I put right face to right face together. My marks are facing outward on both sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the space where this gap is that I drew, and then sew halfway down the bag. We're gonna leave the bottom flap open, so I'm gonna do that on both sides. Okay, so this is the top of my bag. This is the hole that we drew. So I'm just gonna start at the top. I'm gonna line up my fabric with the 5/8 seam allowance. You can see it right there. I'm just gonna start sewing down, taking the pins out as I go along. When I reach my first line, my 2-inch line, I'm just gonna backstitch using the backstitch button. If your machine doesn't have a button, it'll have a lever. And going forward again. And then to skip over that hole, I can just lift up my presser foot, lift up the needle, pull that forward a little bit, line it up at the next line that I created, backstitch at the top of that, and we are only sewing down halfway. Okay, so the reason why we left a 5/8 seam allowance is because you're going to press your seams open with an iron, and that will just kind of expose the hole that we created for the strings to go through. And if the seams are a bit bigger, it just makes this step easier. So I'm gonna do that to both sides of the bag. Okay, so once you have those edges pressed, you can turn your bag right side out. And the bottom is still flopping around, don't worry about that. We're just gonna hem the top. So we're just going to press down 1/4 inch all the way around. Okay, so now that our 1/4 inch is pressed, we're gonna fold it over about 1.5 inches. So I'm just measuring 1.5 inches, a little bit less, 1.5 inches. Great. And then you're going to press down the 1.5 inches all the way around. Okay, so as you can see, this is our fold over, and you can see that our hole is enclosed by the fold over, so just make sure that's happening before you sew it down. And I'm just going to sew down 1/8 inch from the bottom edge all the way around. Also to note, I'm turning it back inside out for this step. Okay, so drawstring bag, we have this sewn over, and we have these holes for inserting the ribbon. So you're just gonna take your first ribbon and attach a safety pin to the end of it. And we are just going to feed this ribbon through one of the sides all the way around past the second hole. And you're going to bring it out the same side that you started from. So there's one. Just like that. And then you're gonna do the same thing for the other ribbon, except the other ribbon is gonna come in this side and out this other side here. So for the next step, turn it inside out, and this is why we left the bottom open. So you can see that the ribbon is on the inside. So you're just going to put the two kind of poking outward like this on the corner of the bag. And that's how that is going to get pinned down. It's going to get pinned down with the other corner coming over it, just like this. And the other two are going to do the same thing, so they're going to come down and poke out the corner like this, and have the other corner lay over it. Now you can see where we stop sewing on either side. So just put a pin in where you need to sew from on either side, just as like a marker, as a guide. Make sure that you're not gonna sew your ribbon into the edges. And we're just gonna close this up here. So around these three edges, I'm not sewing in that ribbon, getting that out of my way. The only place where the ribbon should be sewn in is on the corner. Okay, and now I'm gonna sew that up. Okay, so I sewed up those edges, and now when I turn it right side out, drum roll please. Boom. This is our drawstring backpack. Besides the first part, just learning how to put the strings in and getting those holes and having everything lining up right. Besides all that, it's a pretty easy project. So enjoy, have fun creating it on your own.